Welcome, everyone! For our 12th explainer, we are diving deep into one of the most fundamental and honestly one of the most fascinating concepts in all of Indian philosophy, the radical dualism of Prakriti and Purusha. This idea comes to us from the Samkhya school, a super ancient system that basically splits all of reality into just two core principles. On one side, you've got primordial dynamic nature, and on the other, you have pure, totally silent consciousness. It's a really profound idea that completely challenges how we see ourselves and the world around us, so let's just jump right in.
But before we get into the ancient texts, let's just start with a question for you. Right now, I want you to think about your own experience of life. Are you the one who is doing things, thinking, feeling, worrying? Or is there some part of you that's kind of just watching all of that happen? Are you the actor on the stage, delivering all the lines, feeling all the emotions? Or are you the silent audience member, just observing the whole play unfold? You know, this isn't just some modern self-help question. It's a deep philosophical puzzle that sits right at the heart of what we're about to explore. And the answer that Samkhya gives? Well, it's pretty wild. So here's our game plan for how we're going to unpack all of this. We'll start with what I'm calling the Great Divide, just the basic dualism of Samkhya. Then we'll get really specific, defining these two realities straight from the classic text, the Samkhya Karika. After that, we'll explore the logical case for consciousness, and then this cosmic dance that explains how on Earth these two opposites could ever interact. We'll watch as the entire world unfold from Prakriti. And finally, we'll land on the ultimate goal of this whole system, the liberation that comes from just seeing things clearly. Okay, let's kick things off with the big picture. The entire philosophical building of Samkhya stands on this incredibly powerful, no-compromises dualism. It says there are two and only two fundamental realities that you can't break down any further. On one side, we have Prakriti, primordial nature. It's literally everything that changes, moves, and evolves. It's unconscious, it's dynamic, it's productive, and it's made up of three basic qualities called the gunas. You can think of them as the fundamental threads that weave together the entire fabric of reality. And on the other side, we have Purusha, pure, silent, unchanging consciousness. It's just the witness, it has no qualities, it has no power to act, it does nothing, it just stands completely apart from nature's big show. All right, now that we've got the basic idea down, let's see how the Samkhya Karika, the foundational text for this whole school of thought, systematically builds this distinction. It doesn't just, state it as a fact, it actually constructs the argument piece by piece, and it starts with something really fundamental, the relationship between cause and effect. So right here in its third verse, the Samkhya Karika makes its first really decisive move. It maps out the entire chain of cosmic creation, and then it takes one thing and puts it completely outside of that chain. Here's the verse in Sanskrit. Mulaya prakritir avikritir mahadadya prakriti vikritaya sapta shodashakas tu vikaro na prakritir na vikriti purusha. And that translates to this. Root nature is not an effect. The 7 beginning with mahat are both cause and effect. The 16 are effects only. Purusha is neither cause nor effect. Okay, so let's break down what this verse is actually doing. It's setting up this whole cosmic cascade. It starts with Mula Prakriti, the root nature, which is the uncaused cause of literally everything. From that, the next set of principles evolves, things like cosmic intellect, and these are both effects of what came before and causes of what comes next. Then you get the 16 principles, our mind, our senses, the raw stuff of perception, which are only effects. The entire universe is neatly locked into this chain of causality. And then the text makes this stunning exception. Purusha, consciousness, is placed completely outside this entire framework. It isn't made by anything, and it doesn't make anything. It's neither a cause nor an effect. It just is. The line between them gets drawn even sharper in Karika 11. This verse is basically a definitive checklist of everything nature is, and then it makes this simple, super powerful declaration about consciousness. Here's the full verse in Sanskrit. Trigunam aviveki, vishya, samanyam, achetanam, prasavadharmi, vyaktam tata pradhana tad viparitas tata chapuman. Now, the translation gives us this amazing list of nature's qualities. The manifest, and likewise the primordial source, is constituted by the 3 gunas, non-discriminating, objective, common, unconscious, and productive. Purusha is the opposite. And when you lay it all out side by side like this, wow, the contrast is just stunning. On one side, you have nature. In all its forms, it's woven from the 3 gunas. It can't tell itself apart from consciousness. It's an object of experience. It's common to all of us. It's fundamentally unconscious, and it's constantly producing things. And Purusha? The text just defines it as tad viparita, the exact opposite of all that. So it's beyond the gunas. It is the discriminating subject, it's individual to each of us, it is conscious, and it is non-productive. I mean, the dividing line could not be any clearer. So this brings up a huge question, right? If Purusha is so completely separate, so different from everything we can actually touch and see and feel, why should we even believe it exists? Well, Samkhya saw that question coming a mile away, and it doesn't just ask you to have faith. It builds this fascinating, logical case for why this independent witnessing consciousness has to exist. Let's dig into that argument. In Karika 17, we get 5 formal proofs, 5 logical arguments for why Purusha is a reality. Let's hear the full Sanskrit verse that lays them all out. Samkhat pararthatvat trigunadi viparyayat adhishthanat purusho asti bhoktribhavat kaivalyartham pravritischa. And in English that is, Purusha exists because the aggregate exists for another, because there is an opposite to the 3 gunas and the rest, because there must be a substratum, because there is experiencership, and because there is activity for the sake of liberation. Okay, let's walk through these real quick. First, the argument from design. Complex things, like a bed or a chariot, they're built for someone else to use, right? Our body-mind is a complex aggregate, so it must exist for a user. That's Purusha. Second, an argument from opposition. Since everything in nature is made of the 3 gunas, simple logic suggests an opposite has to exist that isn't. Third, a substratum. For experience to even happen, there has to be a conscious foundation that's overseeing it. Fourth, experiencership. This one's pretty simple. You can't have an experience without an experiencer. And finally, the argument from liberation. The whole spiritual search for freedom implies there has to be someone for whom freedom is actually possible. Okay, so Purusha exists. But is it one single universal consciousness that we all share, or are there many individual ones? Samkhya is crystal clear on this point, and it argues for a plurality of Purushas in Karika 18. Jananamarana karananam pratiniyamad ayukapad vrutishcha Purusha bahutvam siddham trigunya viparyaya chaiva. The plurality of Purushas is established from the separate allotment of birth, death, and the instruments, from the non-simultaneity of activity, and also from the contrast with the 3 gunas. And the logic here is really grounded in just looking at the world around us. People are born at different times. They die at different times. If Purusha were one single thing, all births and deaths would have to happen at the exact same moment. Our minds and our senses, our instruments, are all unique. We don't all do the same thing at the same time. We certainly don't feel the same things. Therefore, consciousness has to be plural. So this is the key takeaway. Samkhya proposes one single universal Prakriti, a shared field of nature that is being experienced by a whole bunch of individual, conscious Purushas. And this really deep contrast with nature logically leads us to the essential characteristics of Purusha, which are just beautifully laid out for us in Karika 19. Tasmach cha viparyapsat siddham sakshitwam asya purushasya. Kaivelyam madhyastyam drashtritwam akartarbhavascha. From that very contrast, it is established that this Purusha is a witness. Likewise, isolation, neutrality, spectatorhood, and non-agency. And this really gets to the core of Samkhya's radical view of who you are. Purusha is a pure witness, just observing the play of nature without ever getting tangled up in it. It's fundamentally isolated, eternally separate. It's neutral, like a completely indifferent spectator sitting in the audience of a play. And, this is the most important one, it has non-agency. It does not act. Now that is a profound statement. All doing, all acting, all changing, that all belongs to Prakriti. All seeing, all witnessing, all consciousness, that belongs to Purusha. Now this, of course, raises the central burning question. If they are so completely different, one is an unseeing actor and the other is an inactive seer, how do they ever come together to produce our lived experience of a conscious person who acts in the world? How do these 2 opposites possibly connect? Well, this is the cosmic dance that Samkhya now has to explain. The entire solution is right here in Karika 20, and it all hinges on one tiny but absolutely crucial Sanskrit word, eva. It means as if. Let's hear the verse. Tasmat tat samyogat achaitanam chaitanavad eva lingam. Gunakartatve bi tatakarteva bhavati udasinah. Therefore, through that conjunction, the unconscious subtle body appears as if conscious. And though the gunas are the agents, the indifferent Purusha appears as if it were the doer. So here's the key. Their natures never actually mix. It's an illusion that's born from them being close to each other. The subtle body, so the mind, intellect, and senses, which are all part of unconscious Prakriti, it appears as if it were conscious because the light of Purusha is shining on it. It's like a clear crystal that looks red when you put a red flower behind it. The crystal isn't red, it just looks that way. And Purusha, the indifferent witness, appears as if it were the actor because it mistakenly identifies with the actions of Prakriti that are just unfolding in its presence. This fundamental confusion of as if for is the root of all our suffering.
Now, to explain this functional, purposeful relationship, Samkhya gives us one of the most brilliant and enduring analogies in all of Indian philosophy, right here in Karika 21. Purushasya darshanartham, kaivalyartham tatha pradhanasya, pangvandavo bayorapi samyogas tatkrita sarga. The conjunction of the two is for the seeing of Purusha, and for isolation, as also for pradhana, like the lame and the blind, creation arises from their conjunction. And this is the famous analogy of the lame and the blind. I want you to imagine a person who is blind but can walk perfectly, and another person who is lame but can see perfectly. Separately, they're both pretty helpless. But if the lame person climbs up onto the blind person's shoulders, they can cooperate. The lame one can see the path and give directions, while the blind one provides all the power of movement. In this analogy, Prakriti is the blind but active one. Purusha is the seeing but inactive one. Their conjunction, their teamwork, allows for the whole journey of worldly experience to happen. And it's all for a dual purpose, for Purusha to see nature and ultimately to see its own distinction from it and achieve liberation. So with this cooperative relationship all set up, the system then details Prakriti's role. It isn't just a static partner in this dance. It's the dynamic, productive principle from which the entire cosmos evolves, from the most subtle layer of intellect right down to the physical elements we can see and touch. So let's see exactly how that unfolding happens. What's just amazing about this is that Karika 22 gives us the entire blueprint for this cosmic unfolding in just a few incredibly compact lines. Here's the Sanskrit. Prakritir mahan tato ahankara tasmad ganashcha sodashaka tasmadapi pasodashakad panjabhyaha panjabhutani. From Prakriti comes the great principle, from that, ahamkara, from that, the group of 16, and from 5 among these 16, the 5 gross elements. So this shows us this really ordered sequence of evolution. Everything kicks off with the unmanifest root, Prakriti. When it's stirred by the presence of Purusha, it first gives rise to Mahat, which is the cosmic intellect, or buddhi. From that comes ahankara, the principle of individuation, the I-maker that creates our sense of self. This then produces the group of 16, which includes our mind, the 5 senses of perception, the 5 organs of action, and the 5 subtle elements. Finally, from those subtle elements, the 5 gross elements of our physical world, earth, water, fire, air, and space arise. And the key thing to always remember is that this entire complex process of evolution, it belongs to Prakriti, and Prakriti alone. Purusha just remains the constant, uninvolved, unchanging witness to this whole grand cosmic show. And this brings us to our conclusion. We've explored this deep divide between nature and consciousness, the logical proofs for witnessing self, that tricky as-if relationship that binds them together, and the cosmic evolution of Prakriti. So what is the ultimate point of this huge, intricate philosophical system? Well, it all points to a single, profound goal: liberation through clear seeing. The goal is called kaivalya, which translates to isolation or aloneness. But this isn't some negative, lonely state. It is the final liberating realization that Purusha has always been free, has always been separate from Prakriti. See, liberation isn't about changing Purusha or creating some new heavenly state of being. It's about correcting a fundamental mistake in how we perceive things. It's about discriminating once and for all the seer from the seen, the witness from the play, and realizing that your truest self, your consciousness, was never truly bound, was never really the actor, and was never ever the one who was suffering. And so we end right where we began, with that question. If liberation isn't about becoming something new, but it's about recognizing a truth that has always been there, well, that changes everything. So I'll leave you with this thought to chew on. What in your own life might you be confusing? What as-if have you mistaken for is? What could you see differently today if you simply shifted your perspective from the actor, totally lost in the drama, to the calm, silent witness who's just watching it all unfold? If you found this journey into Samkhya philosophy as fascinating as I did, please do consider liking this and sharing it with someone who might enjoy it. We'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. And of course, please subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world's most incredible ideas. Thanks so much for watching.